As I was saying, I have the great pleasure to serve as a volunteer board member for Open Air and have done so for a few years now. A part of that service has been getting this initiative up and off the ground, and we're thrilled to be in our second year of Indigenous initiatives, and even more thrilled to have DG House with us here today. We'll get our conversation going in a moment here, but also just sort of want to alert you that the format that we have evolved to for these conversations is to have our conversation with an artist or a member of the arts community. And then in the next month, we are offering opportunity for all of us to come back together again and to kind of dive a little deeper into some of the questions or the issues that might come up during the months where we are spending time with individual artists and other members of the arts community. So want to welcome you to get signed up. I think by nature of signing up for this particular talk, you're sort of automatically in the queue to be invited to some of our future events, and we hope that you'll take advantage of that. As I had mentioned a few minutes earlier, I've got some yard work taking place outside, so I apologize if you can hear any background noise. I will mute myself when I am not talking. In addition to recording today, just want to encourage you to pop any of your comments or questions into the chat, and we'll save some time at the end of our program today to address questions and really maybe get things kicked off so that we are primed and prepped for next month's deeper conversation. So please feel free to do that, to put those questions into the chat for us. And we will open things up towards the end. With that done, in case I missed something, please, Keisha or Stony, give me like a, all right. I don't have a formal land acknowledgement prepared or in front of me for this, so I'm just going to go ahead and do my own land acknowledgement-esque commentary. We are on stolen land. And what that looks like is us being in daily community and business on the lands of peoples that have been occupied and inhabited to thriving Indigenous communities for a millennia or more. And those same individuals are here to this day, making beautiful work, living in beautiful lives, and all of that is despite some real systemic and institutionalized efforts to eradicate those peoples. And we just all want to take a pause and acknowledge that. And then we're going to move on to acknowledge that Indigenous peoples are still very much here today, creating and living beautiful lives. So with that said, I'm going to do an incredibly brief introduction for DG because we're going to touch on many of the things that are in her formal bio here and more in our conversation. So I'm just going to say this last little part, through hard work and a hand up, DG House is celebrating 28 years. 28 years as a full-time professional visual artist. Her work is exhibited in museums and galleries worldwide. She creates art curriculum for Indian education for all and lectures in venues across the United States on Indigenous art making. Welcome, DG. Super excited to be this. I wish I was like sitting next to you on some sweet sofa, so that I could give you a squeeze and we could be in person community together, but this is the next best thing. So I, without further ado, will just jump into our first question. DG and I are going to just do like a little interview style conversation here, but we acknowledge that we don't need to stick necessarily to these questions, and we most likely won't.
True.
So DG, you have had a long career as a visual artist, but your path wasn't exactly linear or traditional. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay. Yesterday I just finished my last class for Indian Education for All for the 3rd grade in Belgrade. I write their art curriculum for that. They are a delight, hilarious. They are so bright. If you study what Montana wants, which is the 7 essential understandings, we call them, for Indian Education for All, these kids are so quick that they get them all in the first time that I come, and then we just reiterate the rest of the year and inform that. Yesterday is the best class of the year because we paint blue bears with me, the entire 3rd grade. Some of the funny things, let me tell you, and I will go back to the story, but I have to tell you what a 3rd grader said to me yesterday. It was a statement, and she stopped the class and she said, DG, did you ever think that maybe the reason you paint blue bears and purple moose is because that's how you would like the world to be if you were the creator? And I said, I'm going to talk to a group of people tomorrow. I'm going to tell them what you said. That's the kind of insightfulness that a 9-year-old has. Did I ever see myself as a teacher? No, I was terrified to talk in public. Now I know most of you'll start laughing now, but I swear I am an extroverted introvert. Is that what they call that? You could talk, but really you're an introvert. So no, here's what I wanted. I was the only Native in grade school. I was the only Native in high school, and there are only 2 of us in college in the I want to say it right, the minority scholarship program at the University of Cincinnati. I was so isolated from my community because we were in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my father worked at General Electric. But here's the deal. We were sent to a private Catholic school, and what I did that was good, and there were things that were good, is that we had an unbelievable education, which included music and art and grammar every year for 12 years. We did have a fabulous education, but mostly it was the introduction to art. And I'm going to give my mother credit. Any of you that have lived in a Catholic neighborhood, no matter what ethnicity it is, these tend to be, at this time, we're talking the 60s and 70s, small homes with a lot of people in it. Nowadays, they call these starter homes. But back then, that was your home, and you stayed in that home. And my mother allowed us to sing, play instruments, paint on the dining room table, lay on the living room floor and sketch and paint. No one ever discouraged us from doing that. And all 4 of my siblings played guitar, wrote songs, painted something. So I grew up in a natural environment of creativity, not so much culture, although it was there. And even my friends from grade school and my teachers tell me it was talked about, but I have very little memory of that. But for some reason, I was born with a desire to go out west. And this is hilarious. I never been there. This is pre-internet. I'm not looking at pictures of it. By high school, it was all about John Denver getting out. I've been to Colorado once, but it was my life's calling to get out west and to make art. But how do you do that when there's no internet and you don't know anybody that's an artist? There's no professional art maker in your family, in your neighborhood. Not only that, it's a very conservative neighborhood. So, you get laughs or what's going to be your backup, those kind of things. My two other best friends at UC that wanted to major in art too, they immediately after graduation went to work for greeting card companies, and there's nothing wrong with that. But wanting to paint wildlife and wildlands and be in Cincinnati, it was just, there was no way out. There was, but I didn't know it, how to do that. So, so I'm going to school for wildlife biology and forensic pathology, as one does, right? And and so I had a class in order to get into med school, you know, straight A's. And the class was, if you can get an article, it's a journalism class. If you can get an article published by the end of the semester or promise to be published, you get an A. And I thought, well, I like ice hockey. So I queried that. And next thing you know, that was my career. I not only was a local photographer, I had literally snuck into Reds and Bengals games. Nowadays, you'll just get arrested. But I walked in thinking I was all mature. And they thought I was, you know, when I carried a not a clip, you know, it was brown clipboards in my camera. So I thought everyone thought I'm 16 years old. They probably thought I was someone's kid. But I published photos of the Reds, Bengals, got the local ice hockey team, and then went to work for Hockey Weekly, and the New York Rangers were my team. And so what happened then is I saw a poster at college that said, "Spend your summer in Yellowstone Park." Are you kidding me? Yes. This is all snail mail, remember? So I apply and it comes back and blah, blah, blah. I get in I don't even know what year it was, a Pinto station wagon with a duffel bag, and drove from Cincinnati to Yellowstone when it wasn't open in the winter, and there were only 6 employees there, and I was one of them. And it completely changed my life. And so for the next 8 years, I spent every summer working in Yellowstone, and then I'd go back to a job. Ice hockey, or after that, it was rock and roll. I worked for Viacom, which was MTV. So as a rock and roll photographer. And then in '88, I moved full-time to Bozeman. And then I was lucky enough to be a professional wildlife photographer until '95. And finally, my husband, God bless him, said, all I ever wanted to do was be a painter. And I have never worked in my own culture. You know, everything was in the predominant culture in my career. And in '95, he says, what are you waiting for? Are you going to wait to retire? Are you going to wait and never do it? What are you going to do? And I had a full-time and a half-time job. I quit the full-time, then the half-time, and then I went full-time, terrified. In '95 at the Emerson Cultural Center here in Bozeman, that I rented an 8x10 room for $50 a month. And I opened the door immediately. And not too long after, what I started with is painting native images on flower pots, honest to goodness, and painting also. But that's where the money was coming from. And in walked the door is somebody you might know named Kevin Red Star. And that's how I met him. He just walked in the door of my studio. And we start talking, and he's got a friend with him from San Fran. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, guess what? When are you going to do it? Are you going to wait till you're retired? The whole story. That was the last day I ever painted any of those pots. And I had my first solo show 4 months later, and I haven't stopped. And this is 28 years later. That, you know, this is a testament to having no background, no, but you don't know anybody in the field. I didn't know another artist. I didn't know how to get in a gallery. I knew nothing. I had no financial backing. I had no credit cards. If I'm not the story of how you can make it from nothing, you know, I had the background of composition and all that, but through through incredibly hard work, but also the kindness of the people I met around me, this happened. It's amazing, actually. So that's my crooked tale to being a full-time artist and lecturer and teacher. And I really saw none of it coming. I'm so lucky.
I love it. I especially love that Kevin Red Star does a cameo.
Come on. Out of every native artist in the United States, Oh, comes walking through my door.
Brilliant. Totally. I can see like the halo around him as he's coming through that door that you popped open.
Well, I'll be honest with you guys, it was even funnier because I was completely bent over trying to put a 6x6 canvas together in an 8x10 room with my rear up in the air when he came through and he said, "Excuse me." Hi. How are you? Yes, that was our introduction.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So DG, your willingness to expose yourself, and I'm going to have a small chuckle at the word expose yourself after that last comment, to a wide range of environments and experiences has been a hallmark of your journey. In what ways has your openness shaped your work?
It's absolutely everything. And sometimes when I talk to people, I say, I think part of it was, I hate to use the word ignorance, I didn't know to be afraid. Like when I went to New York City, I drove in, parked in Times Square and walked to Madison Square Gardens. That's ignorance. but to them, it was like, oh, that's our gal. If she can just pull right into, no. So some of it was, I didn't know better, but to be scared. The other part, I don't know where it comes from. I honestly don't know, but I will. Oh my gosh, the first time I was artist in residence in Coulter Bay in Grand Teton, I had been there and visited, and a wonderful man named Charlie Rising Sun, flute maker, flute player. He was the artist in residence, and it was instant, just loved him. And he goes, "Here's who you call, here's what you do to get this gig." And what it is 7 days at Coulter Bay at the time at the Indian Arts Museum, world-renowned Indian Arts Museum. And you stay for a whole week. So I called them, and of course, nobody quits. Nobody wants to quit that gig. So I called once a month, and then I called twice a month, and then I started calling every week until she finally called me back, and she goes, "All right, we have an opening in 2 weeks. It's the worst week of the year. It used to be. Now it's busy every week. Worst week of the year. You've got 10 days. Bring what you have. Goodbye. See you in 10 days." And I did it. My husband hand built me a print rack. And so I get there. All they gave me was a campsite. I don't have an RV. So I'm in a tent. So imagine that in bear country. And then I go down to take my first shower, and they haven't turned the hot water on. So that's ice cold. And then I get to the venue and nobody's even acknowledging. Can you even imagine? But at the end of that week, that was the first time I thought to myself, well, I am an artist. Because when people ask for the first couple years, I would stumble. Well, I did. And at the end, the reception from the visitors let me realize that I have a real path and a real career, and I sold out. Now there wasn't much, so don't be too impressed, but I did sell out, and that started my journey. And I start year number 28 in a month as artist in residence at Coulter Bay. But that was just determination, and people were not kind to me in the beginning of my career. Especially the academic set, which is hilarious now because I teach at universities all over. But when I started, I'm being honest with you, they weren't nice to me. Some of it was cultural. They did not understand what I was doing. They had can you imagine that in Bozeman, just 23 years ago, that there was nobody at the university that knew what ledger art was and didn't have a clue what that's amazing, isn't it? How, let's think of how far we've come. I'm not talking about the Native Studies department. I'm talking about the art department. Didn't know. And then I'm doing blue bears and purple moose. And remember, this is before the new kind of West painting came along. And so I've heard my share. I'll tell you that. The trick to that, I tell young artists, is the trick to success is you don't quit. That doesn't mean I didn't cry. It doesn't mean I wasn't hurt. Doesn't mean I got so exhausted I'd cry in a hotel room from exhaustion. All those things did happen, but I didn't quit. And that's the difference. So I don't know where this resilience comes from. I don't know if cultural thing, I don't know. But get out of my way.
Saw those people in those tiny houses. You gotta gotta be scrappy.
It scares people because I'm genuinely a nice person, but you start picking on somebody, including me, the dragon lady comes out at that point. Yeah, I'm very, very protective of younger artists, and especially younger Native artists.
Wow. DJ, I recently got to listen to you talk about through the Missoula Art Museum, got to listen to you talk about being out in the field, and like that's where you're taking in a lot of your muse, right?
Yeah,
For
exactly.
your works, and that willingness to kind of throw yourself into things really came out in that talk. Can you share with us a little bit about your art making process? Because I really did see that same kind of, elbowing your way into the business approach. It really sort of comes through in your art making process too.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to say this to you all, and I'm not sure there was a place for me. I at that time, I think I just created the vacuum that needed me, if that makes sense. So I have dedicated my life, both culturally, artistically, to the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And I'm about to start my 42nd year in Yellowstone. And we had a cultural incident last week when I was there, and I'll share that with you too. But I am now one of the permanent artists in residence at the Old Faithful Inn, and I could tell you that Xanterra, and that's the concessionaire, they are trying so hard. They work a lot with Shane Doyle. They now have a cultural center there at Old Faithful, but they are working to making amends in that park and bringing in a lot of indigenous ideas and artists. I think, I'm not sure, John Potter's a good friend. I don't know which one of us started first, but we're about at the same. We were the one or two in the park, and we were the only ones for quite a long time, which is kind of amazing. But anyway, if you think about all the years I spent in the backcountry photographing, and now every one of those experiences is a real work of art. So everything I paint actually really happened. So the bear might be blue, but I actually was in the field. I did see that bear. We did interact. So my process is, people have asked me, I don't understand, other artists, how come you have one of almost like every animal in this one show? How'd you do that? Well, here's how I did it. I write it down. I write down what I think are the most important stories to tell at whatever show I'm going to do. And then I have a remembrance of every one of those interactions. If it's a pika, if it's a trout, whatever it is, I write it all down. Then I go through all my memories and photographs that I've taken. Then I decide what I'm going to paint. Then I sketch it, then I Sharpie it. I underpaint it in gray, I underpaint it in red, and then the fun is on. And that's why it looks so rich in color. It's all the work you can't see is what makes it look like it's 3D, and even sometimes stained glass. Sometimes when I work, that's how you achieve that effect. So that's my process, and I never have been without an idea. Never. Lucky me.
I loved, you had put out your sort of sketchbook images
Yes.
for the 5th grade art experience. Excuse me. And I really loved that, having that window into your process. And, you were talking about earlier how your early commercial photography career helped you with that composition.
It has, and
you later in your
right.
fine art career.
I
And I can
paint like
see
a
that.
photographer. If you look, it's the same moment you would snap the shutter is the
Right.
image I paint. It's the, a certain look, an eye, a paw going up. I am actually a painting from a photographer's perspective. And then you mix in culture, and then this is what comes out.
Well, let's talk about that mixing in of the culture. And I'm again, like, so loving that your viewfinder, your snapshot is being taken here in these days. Talk to us about how your Indigenous identity has influenced your creative approach.
I've been thinking about this lately. I don't know how you separate. I don't know. It's so ingrained. And now my story is really strange. I don't know if it's strange, whatever. It's different because I'm enrolled in the Southeast. And then I come out here and I live the predominant part of my life here in Plains country. And people take me in. They trust me enough to take me in and then teach them things about their ceremonies, the way they're doing it. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a combination of all these things. And how can I help it? How can I help not to be? Because you are the accumulation of all your experiences. So now there's all these people and all these different tribes that I adore and think of as family and then call me family. So there's that whole level too that's going on. I have done projects with members of different nations here, including public projects with Frank Finley from he's Salish and he's a professor at SKC, and we consider each other family. And we did a project together with Molly Stockdale, who I adore, at Travelers Rest. And that was fascinating because we did that project 50-50 on Salish land, but I said I will not do that unless a Salish artist works with me. I'm happy. As long as everybody wants me to participate, I will. And if they don't want me to participate, I'll respect that too. But I'm kind of an odd duck, here in Montana, but I feel very much loved and accepted. I hope that answers. So that's a whole different story too, because I'm coming from my own and also respecting. I'll give you, if you don't know, some of you an example. There are tribes here in Montana that don't want to be around owls, talk about owls or whatever. There's other tribes here that it means something different, and it means something different to my people. So when I go to an event that's those particular tribes, I will never bring an owl painting, ever. If I'm going to the Autry Museum or the Idle Drug Museum for Indian Market, I will bring it then because I'm representing myself. So there's layers of that too when you're in somebody else's land. And I was telling the Missoula Art Museum, the whole reason those borders are on my paintings, that's an honoring of where I'm at, because I'm on somebody else's land too. And so I thought, what is the one kind of consistent? And it's kind of that Parfleche, Cameron Decker, he explains it better than me. Dr. Decker, he does. He explains my work better than I could explain my work. So he did a talk on it about the honoring of the tribes and lands I'm on, goes on my painting first because they get respect first. And then I do my images off of that. So that's what those borders are about. You see on my artwork. It's about respect and where you are, right? The place you're at, because everywhere you are is somebody's land, and I just want to be respectful of where I was able to make a career and be welcomed in. Yeah, I'm totally aware that's how that went down.
Thank you for that, DJ. So I'm going to kind of pedal back a little bit to talk about the business side, the business of art. But I also too, in light of the conversation we just had regarding identity and how that plays
Mhm.
into things, got kind of a multi-part question for
Okay.
you. So if you could please tell us about your business approach and how that approach has changed over time,
Okay.
and how your identity plays a role in your business strategies, in what ways that.
Yeah, I understand all that. When I taught this, before there was even an entrepreneurship program, if you've heard of this, from the Montana Arts Council, where they go in and they teach. Cindy Kittredge wrote this. It probably would have been a 4-credit college class on how to make a living as an artist, regardless of medium that you're in. I was teaching this because I had to learn everything the hard way. How do you get in a show? Well, there was no internet. There was a book called The Artist's Guide to Galleries or something that would come out every year, and you'd go, and it's this thick, and you'd go to the Barnes and Noble and buy it and go through it. And then there was a newsletter. Remember Ben Franklin's? There's an old name. We had a Ben Franklin here in Bozeman, and it was just a copied, stapled sheets of paper to say the local shows. So I had to learn everything that way, and hit and miss. I call them crochet chicken shows. No offense to any crochet chickens. If I went to that kind of show, I do, oh, I'm in the wrong place. This isn't my people, all these hard lessons. So there are no books on how to write an artist statement, or how, an artist resume looks nothing like, you're going for a job for. So I had to learn all of that. So I started having these little classes in my studio with 2 or 3 people and telling them what I knew to that point. Well, the next thing you know, they call me from the Montana Arts Council and offer me a coaching job. And so then I did it professionally for the Montana Arts Council. And those were the days where we had to start with, we've got to format an email. It was so basic back then. So then I moved from there onto the reservations. And you know what some of that started with? You got to find a job to get you a car, to get you to shows. And we started there. And then over the years, I want you to know 1 or 2 of those young people are now some of the shining stars. I'm not mentioning names, some of the shining stars in the native art world right now. And we started with that. They got a break. They'd come here and borrow art panels and lights. That took, I want you to hear from their perspective, how much nerve that took them to trust me, to come here, to borrow. Anyway, and then they have gone on. So my approach has been this, and I mean it, when I could afford, it was a big deal when I could afford a $30 show. I still remember that. And you got to make $50 or $100. We're talking the 90s. And then the big thing was my first $100 show. That was an investment. I got 3 kids at home. And then one day, there's a $1,500 show. And now I do $3,000 shows. We're talking almost 30 years, later, but you start wherever you're at. And I'll tell you what started me, honest to God, was farmer's market. And I left the door open to my studio, and it was a public building. And then I went to farmer's market. That was $5 for a table. And I got up at 5 o'clock every Saturday, all summer long. And there are great opportunities in Missoula for this. And there's an Indian, where's it at? Somebody here is going to know. There's a native market that goes on 2 times a month in Missoula. I know it. You guys are so organized in Missoula. But wherever you are, there's always a farmer's market. So what you do is we call it, in the industry, we call it the coffee cup. And what that is make something that everyone can afford. So it could be a coffee cup, but have something in the $5 range. So now, at the level I am now, I'll be at Slam in August. And that booth will be $5 to probably $7,000, with the vast majority being $5 to $40. That's in the booth. This is just the science of being an artist. And I make my money, big money, in volume. So when I'm in the Tetons, just pick a number of what you think the week would be. Half of that will be $5 to $50. The other half will be originals. I absolutely believe that everybody deserves fine art. Everyone. It's not for a certain group of people. And I had a lady come in the Tetons, and she started to cry because they were on a budget and there was no money left. And she wouldn't take anything. I kept asking her to take something and she wouldn't. And I said, this will never happen again. And I redesigned my business card that one side is nothing but a painting. So if that ever happened again, all you had to do is take one of my business cards, put it in a frame, the black piece of paper, and you have art. And that perspective for me, I got plenty of enough high-end collectors, but I have an abundance of $50 collectors, and they're every bit as important to me. So when I get asked to teach about social media and all that, and I tell people I can't, this is why I can't. I don't say anything on social media that didn't really happen, and it's my real personality. I can't teach you how to do that. What I can tell you is, open up. Oh, look, it's sitting right here. Open up your heart. There's my business card. You can open yourself up and not make yourself public. I don't know how to say that to you. You don't have to say everything. That's what I'm saying to you. I have no interest in being negative or whatever in social media when I'm talking about art. I will bring up difficult subjects if they happen, but mostly I'm there for cultural information, information of the natural world, and a bit of encouragement is how I like to approach it. But I can share with you some cultural things that happened in Yellowstone, and it's been dealt with. But I'm going through the park to get ready to start the year, and this was only maybe a week and a half ago. And I got stopped at the gate and questioned about the sage and sweetgrass on my dashboard. And 42 years, thousands and thousands of entrants in the park, no one's ever said anything. And I told her, this is a cultural thing, it's this and that. And she said, well, a ranger will pull you over for gathering plant material from the park. No, you guys, that's hilarious as it is, because neither one of those grow in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Plus, there's 5 feet of snow on the ground. There's lots of reasons why this was hilarious. And she said, well, you can either take it off the dashboard in front of me, or you have to have me write a permit for you to have it. Now, if I was in my right mind and not shocked, I would have sat there and turned the car off, but I just took it off the dashboard. And then it started. I decided to make a public post. The cultural representative to the park saw it. I can just tell you that it's gone not only to the top in the park, but it's gone to the top of the Park Service in DC. These are the kind of things, we're on a different subject, I know now, but these are the kind of things that we need to work on as a country. These kind of, how do I want to put it? You should, in my opinion, you shouldn't be working at the gate of the mother park of the world, which is on native land, if you don't understand the most basic of cultural items, which is sweetgrass and sage, and not natives aren't the only ones that carry that. Anyway, so that happened, and that was quite the 10 days ago. It bothered me more than I thought it did at first. It lingered. But anyway, great reception to it. Everyone took responsibility. They immediately got hold of all the rangers in both Yellowstone and Grand Teton, from what I understand, and explained it to them. So yeah, the response was like that. So it's all good, but it was shocking.
Thank you.
So off the subject.
No, it's it's all part of it.
It is, isn't it? It's all part of it.
It is. So I am going to ask you if you could give, this might be a tough question, but if you could give only
Okay.
one piece of advice to your younger self about the business of art, what would it be?
It would be stop waiting and do it. Just do it. That would be my advice. I didn't know that at 18, when I graduated, I could have just got in a car. I had money, I had worked and driven. I didn't know I could get in a car and go down to an art gallery and just introduce myself. That's the kind of stuff I would tell. And I'd say that to anyone younger than me now. You have every right to be part of this. You have every right. So jump in and join us. That's what I'd say.
I would say young and older than you.
For all of us. It's for all of us. Don't wait. Don't let somebody else tell you what to do.
That's right.
Go,
That's right.
you just go and do it.
I'm
I
loving
had a
all
funny,
the
yeah, go
themes
ahead.
of the paying it forward too.
Yes.
I've heard that
Isn't
come
that
up
the
a
truth?
lot in your conversation here, for
It's
sure.
absolutely true. I have, gosh, I can't even believe, first of all, I can't believe I'm still alive with the things I did. Because, I definitely had the 20s I'll never die syndrome. In the situations, taking cabs in major cities. And I mean, can you guys picture me on the ice with that camera and that hole in the ice and those hockey players hitting that glass? And I mean, this was National Hockey League. And I worked with the 1980 Olympic boys. That was the young men I worked with. Herb Brooks, all of that. Crazy me.
But DJ, is there anything else that you would like to share with us off script that we have?
Sure. It's not easy for any of us to go into the public eye. You immediately are vulnerable to something anyone can say. Don't think I haven't been said, you're an Indian. Or if you're not in the right tribe, or if you're not it can come internally, it could come among your own people. That's rare for me, but it has happened. It certainly can come from the outside. It doesn't matter if they're if they are making fun of your art or your identity or your looks, or all that becomes vulnerable. You've got to be bigger than that, and you have to be steadier than that, because there's always going to be somebody that gets their kicks from trying to hurt somebody that's out there and doing their best. So that's the only negative side, really, to doing this. That and starving. No, I'm kidding. No, you don't have to starve. There's no such thing as a starving artist, really. I will say one more funny story before we end. I am at the Tetons, and it is an entire gallery, and you're in this art, this cultural center, and your name is above you, and it says your name, and it says guest American Indian artist on it, and so you have to know this to know to get to how this all worked, and my work is everywhere, and this 9-year-old-ish comes in, and this happens a lot with me, where the parents just don't even check where their kids are, and they end up spending an hour sitting there with me, and she wants to be an artist, and I talk, and I'm like, baby, you can do it, and this is your trajectory. Do good in school, do this, do that. The mother comes in, doesn't even acknowledge me, and says, let's go. And the little girl goes, mom, I'm going to be an artist too. And now she's looking around, and she looks at her and she goes, no daughter of mine will be a starving artist. And I'm like, do you not see me sitting there with this sign and all this? And that little girl's heart and her face. And the mom starts to walk away, and I reach out and I grab that little girl by the hand, turned her around and said, still do it. Go and do it. That I love that I get moments like that. Because I saw everything disappeared from her face when her mother said that. You just have to keep going. I don't care how old you are. It's your dream. Keep going. Your life, your dream.
Fabulous. Well, from sports and rock and roll photography to, you know, flower pots to fine art. Here you are, and we're so grateful for it, DG. I do want to open up for any questions that any folks might have at this point. I don't see any questions in the chat. I do want to raise up that Dylan has put into the chat link to Missoula Indigenous made markets for anyone.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Interested in that. I know this Friday there's an Indigenous art market that's
So tomorrow
in place. Yeah.
Tomorrow. Oh, I wish I could go. I wish I could go.
Yes. So we do have a question. Let's see here. Oops. Kent has asked, what is the one action that you did that totally changed your art career?
It was all internal. It was all my own personal perspective. When I realized that I could have a voice and I could matter in the art world, and I wasn't less than the other artist, that's when everything changed. That's when my artwork changed. That's when I changed, and it was all in my head, all of it. And that, thank you for asking, that was the change for me when I finally respected myself enough. Other people respected me, but when I respected myself, that's when it all changed.
Thanks, Gigi. Tracy is wondering if the blue bear has a meaning that is based in Indigenous culture.
You know, there is such a thing. There is such a thing I have found later in other cultures, and other Indigenous cultures. For me, it's all based really on, there's two parts to this. The first is that after a career in professional sports, rock and roll, and remember, none of this was digital. None of it had an automatic focus. I spent 15 years in a viewfinder in high stress situations, catching these images of every hair against all odds. So when I wanted to paint, I wanted to come from an Indigenous perspective and a more emotional perspective. So when I hit that blue, that was the color of a bear soul for me. But I had also a cultural background that sacred to us are the black bears of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So I have both of these coming together, and that's where the blue bear came from. So the answer is yes, it's got both. It's an emotional component. It's a cultural component too. And it was something I could bring from where I'm from to where I belong, where I live. So thank you for asking. And then for the purple moose, it was just plain fun because I'm known for purple moose too. I was behind the Jackson Lake Lodge. The moon came out. This huge bull started walking through the bushes, and in the moonlight, he was purple. He had a purple cast, and it's like, that's a sign. There we go. So here's something that is important, if you guys don't mind me sharing. I was early in my career, I had somebody walk by me, some kind of angel, never stopped walking, walked right by me and said, "You should only paint in colors that appear here," and just kept walking. And I went, what? What? So what I did is I figured out what the natural paint would be, earthen paint would be for the region. And I'm not painting an earthen paint. I'm painting regular acrylics and oils, but the color palette of that's the color palette that I paint in. So when you see how my paintings kind of match, that's why, because I'm painting in the colors of the ecosystem, which in turn then, because the people are doing that with the regalia early on, my paintings look like a powwow most of the time, because we're all kind of working in this natural palette of this area. So it all kind of came together like that.
Thanks, DJ. I'm going to go to a verbal question from
Please.
Stella up here in my left corner.
Hi. Yeah, I guess I feel kind of bashful because I'm from Bozeman, and as a kid and still now, I've really admired your work. And I had this story that I wanted to tell you. That when I was in high school, I failed the AP art test. And I thought I was so discouraged, and I remember I was like crying, and I was really embarrassed. And my mom pulled up your website, and she said, like, she showed me your work, and it was just like life changing to me to see someone else. I'm like gonna cry. But because I just love painting colorful animals too, and just seeing someone else succeeding that I could see work that I was interested in really like changed my life. So thank
Oh,
you.
honey, if I had any idea, and I mean this, if I had any idea, I would have had you out. I would have had you here, right? I would have. And I would have talked to you also. And you just made my day. I am so glad that even just my work was able to do that for you, because I know exactly who you are. And I know the work that you make. And I think you're incredible. I'm so glad that I could add a little encouragement to you. And I promise you I will continue to be in your corner. Okay? Always. And you can come visit me at any time, because we're in that same camp. You and I see the world in the same way. So I understand you and the work that you do. And I so appreciate this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Mwah.
Shoot, y'all,
Mwah.
you are making people
I cried. All right, wait, let's all do it. Everyone ready?
I think we've got time for maybe at least one more question, maybe two. And this one, I think, is a really great follow-up to that sharing, that exchange with you and Stella there. As Dylan said, your husband seems unconditionally supportive. What
Yes.
would you say to family members who are skeptical or scared of you taking the leap as an artist?
Boy, am I lucky. I married a man he's got both brains. He's the network administrator up at MSU, but he also in his life has been a painter, a flute maker, a didgeridoo maker. His studio is right behind me. I'm in this warehouse, he's back here. So he has an artistic brain. And then of course it's just his personality. And we have done this together. I couldn't possibly have achieved what I've done without him, because I couldn't load the van, pack the van, make all the art. You know, you need somebody in your corner. It doesn't have to be a spouse even, but you need somebody. I have a village, I'm not kidding. One of them is on here right now, of people that will call and say, what can I do? What can I do? Can I clean the studio? Can I pick up some food before this? So my husband, how do I want to tell you guys this? I don't want to say anyone. Okay, I know how to say it. There are various artists that have noticed that have gone to my husband and said, my husband just isn't interested, won't, whatever. And then this is funny, but then what do I try to say? Sneakily, I don't know, brought their husband to one of my shows and introduced them to Dan. It's happened more than once. And Dan, would say to them, well, if you want to know the best way to help, what I have found is, and then he also is doing counseling about, what I have found my wife needs is this, this, and this. And the joke in the art community for women is, for straight women is, I need a wife. Because every male artist I know, their wife makes all the, takes care of all the clothes, makes all the reservations, pays all the fees, and I'm trying to do all of that. And then Dan tries to do the heavy work, the lifting, the packing, all of that. So it's just, whatever situation you're in, but I can tell you to not have to fight from my right to be a full-time artist in my personal life. Can you imagine that blessing? So you did figure him out. He will say things to me like, well, Deej, do you want a clean kitchen, or do you want to, make your deadline? What do you really want? And I'll say, I want to make my deadline. He goes, then don't do the dishes. We'll do them tomorrow. And he yells at me, things like that, and yeah, lucky me. I can see it in your eyes. Yeah, lucky me. He is totally on my side, completely and totally on my side. I lucked out. He was my high school boyfriend. We went apart, just separate ways, and then got back together. And this is our 30th anniversary, wedding anniversary this year. That doesn't mean we don't fight. Did you ever see couples trying to remodel a house? So don't think we don't fight. I'm sure I frustrate him, but he'd be laughing right now if he heard that. But no, I lucked out. I got the right one. Yeah, surround yourself with the people that support you. I wanted to bring this up today, and I don't know why. I don't know who out there needs to hear this, but I have a friend who went to art school in, it's either Arkansas or Alabama, but they would only allow the students there to major in studio art as long as they got a teaching degree also. That's the kind of negativity you don't need. Unless you want to be a teacher, that's great. But you don't need that kind of, squishing your soul down. You don't need it.
I appreciate that, DJ. I think we've got time for maybe just one more question. Stoney has asked, oh my gosh, now I lost it. Oh, do you have ideas that come up that seem out of concert with your other works? And if so, how do you handle that?
I am one of the fortunate ones. Anybody I've ever met that counsels artists tell you to find your niche and stay in it, I am so lucky. I also jelly print. I do all kinds of hand printing too. I take that with me. So if I have those ideas, and I am now going to share a secret with all of you. I got 2 new works coming out it'll be for the Idle-Jorg Indian Market in June. I'm working on them now. One is a painting where I took material to and stitched through it. That really cool way that people patch their clothes and all, only I did native symbols and put it on the shirt of the painting of the person that I'm painting. I literally sewed it onto the canvas. So that'll be new. And the other thing I decided to do, this is how my mind works. I have all these compartments of native stories that I've been in the place, or I know people related to them and all this, and it's all different compartments. So I got one of those old printer trays, the real deal, where the letters go in and with all the little compartments. And I did a hand drawing of all those people or incidents in probably the last 400 years. And what is the continental US, and all those drawings are in each of the compartments. So I was able to try to figure out my own brain how all these stories connect, and they're all in one container. So that's 2 of the things I'm doing now. So when I get those ideas, I find the market to take them to, if that makes sense. Not every market would appreciate that, but a museum does. So you kind of start figuring out, I'm not saying, I will tell you guys this. Here's an exception. I went to an arts and crafts show. I mean, a true arts and crafts show well into my career. And I went because I loved the woman who was running it. And this was her last one before she retired. And she was 1 in a million. And she says, I'll make you the featured artist in the feature place. So I was like, I'll come. And what I hoped for was that I would break even, pay for the hotel and stuff. And even if I didn't, that's fine. But I'm going out the door, and there's no big piece for it, but I have a piece that's going down to Jackson to some gallery in a week. So I take it with me because you have to have a featured piece on a wall, and I hung it. And literally next to me was a booth that says, we are the Indians, we're not changing our name. Next to me on the other side is we used to call them white elephant, used goods. This is the kind of arts and crafts I'm at. And so we're just sitting there having a nice time, and a woman comes in and they're whispering around. And the woman points at the biggest painting I was bringing other than the Jackson piece, said, all right, if I buy both of these, what's the price? Well, the one was marked 10,000 and the other one was, the other one, this is once in a lifetime, you guys. The other one was marked 1,000. I said, oh, you buy them both, I'll give them to you for 10,000. And her mom goes, it's your anniversary, just do it. And I turned back to my friends. They're looking down and I went, what? By telling you that, I'm telling you that you really still need to take, regardless of what I just said, still take big pieces with you. That had to be 1 in a billion. That somebody walked in and did that. We couldn't breathe. None of us could breathe. We did our best to look like every day. We're getting bored of this.
I love it. I love it.
So take good stuff everywhere. There you go.
Well, we are just a touch over our time. And
Sorry, everybody.
thanks everybody's time, but I want to also thank you, DG, so much for being with us here today and sharing all of your journey and your wisdom with us.
Stella, keep making art. You hear me?
Yes.
Right.
And then I want to encourage folks to join us next month. Questions come up in the meantime, jot them down, bring them next month, and we will talk more about the business of art and bringing ourselves and our authentic selves to the process and the business. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a beautiful afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Love you all. Thank you.